Okay, guys, it's March 5th, 1873, the Isles of Shoals, a cluster of rocky islands scattered off the coast of Maine and New Hampshire. No trees tall enough to block the wind, there's no streets, no street lamps, and there's no neighbors within shouting distance. Just rocks, and the ocean, and whatever rose towards you in the dark. And on Smuttynose Island, 3 women are alone that night. 3 husbands are away on the mainland. The wind is brutal, the sea is black, and somewhere out there a man is rowing towards the shore. He carries no lantern, but he carries an axe.
There is something uniquely horrifying about an island, because if something goes wrong, you can't run anywhere, you can't scream for help, you can't disappear into a crowd. The water pretty much just traps you, and that night, it trapped those people. Welcome back to Two Idiots Among the Dead.
Where the ocean is black, the history is cruel, and the wind does not care if you survive.
I'm Lilith. I love horror. I love folklore. I do not love maritime isolation with axes involved, though.
And I'm Angel, bringing the research, the trial records, and the dread.
And tonight we're going to be talking about the Smuttynose Island murders of 1873.
Which can also be known as the Isles of Shoals axe murders.
And y'all, this is not a legend. This actually happened.
Okay, let's build this from the ground up. The Isles of Shoals sits about 6 miles offshore. In the 1800s, they were home to fishing families, Norwegian immigrants, hardworking, and the tight-knit. Smuttynose Island itself, well, it's small, rocky, and exposed. There's no forest to hide in, and there's definitely no hills to shield you. It's just big open sky and an unforgiving wind.
And guys, we need to emphasize, this isn't tourist Maine at all. This is 1873 Maine. There's no electricity, no motorboats, no telephones, and no way to quickly rescue you in your time of need. So if something happens at night, you wait for daylight and hope you're still alive when help comes.
Now, the island families depend on the fishing there. The men would often travel to the mainland to sell their goods and or gather supplies. Now, on March 5th, the men were gone. John Hontvet and his brother-in-law were gone. They left behind Maren Hontvet, her sister-in-law, Karen Christensen, and Karen's sister, Annette. 3 women alone.
And listen, guys, I really don't care how strong you are. There's something vulnerable about that setup. There's 3 women, they're isolated in winter, mind y'all, on an island that already feels like the beginning of something bad.
This is always the start of a creepy story. 3 women alone. What's not to go wrong?
Oh, it's always about women. Hey, at least women have more balls sometimes. Just saying.
Now, Louis Wagner was not a stranger. He had worked with the island families before, so he knew the layout. And he had stayed in their home prior. And there's another layer. He had also reportedly shown romantic interest in Karen, but it was definitely not returned.
Ugh, yikes. Rejected men and axes are historically not a comforting combination. I just want to say that up front. You listen, don't turn down a guy with an axe in his hand. It might not end well for you.
Yeah. Now, on that night, Wagner had rowed from the mainland to Smuttynose in the winter. Now, across freezing black water without being seen, and that alone should tell you the intent.
Listen, you just don't casually row 6 miles in March at night unless you are extremely committed to something. And it's not just for a social visit. Let's get that in the air.
Now, he reached the shore, he tied up the boat, and he started walking towards the house. He knocked, and of course, they let him in.
See, that is where the detail really starts to kill me, because that means they trusted him. They didn't sense any danger whatsoever. He wasn't some kind of mass stranger crashing through the door. He was familiar. That betrayal layer, man, that's the real horror there.
Mm-hmm. Now, accounts do suggest they spoke normally at first, some small talk, comfortable. And then, at some point during that talk, Wagner picked up an axe inside the house, and Karen was the first one struck.
And this wasn't quick rage. This was repeated. It was very personal, very violent.
Now, Karen did die from multiple blows. Annette fought back, though she struggled, and sadly she did not survive.
See, and now the house is in complete chaos. Blood, wind outside, and Marin is still alive.
Now, the thing is, Marin hid. She hid underneath the bed while her sister-in-law was being murdered.
Listen, I need everyone that's listening to sit with that. Under the bed, hearing it, not seeing it, just hearing the axe hit. Hearing footsteps, hearing someone search in the room, and knowing if you breathe too loud, that's it, game over, you are dead.
Now, Wagner searched, he stole money, and as he moved through the house at one point, he did try to look for Marin. He checked upstairs, he checked outside, but for some reason, he did not think to look underneath the bed.
Ugh. See, that is survival by inches. That is luck or fate or something. Or maybe he's just dumb and doesn't think someone can hide under a bed for some reason. Like, that just is crazy.
If you think about it, he did just kill 2 people, so he's just trying to ransack the house. And then he's like, wait a minute, there's one survivor. He's not, thinking. He's just thinking of, obvious places. Although, the bed should be the obvious place.
The bed's always the first place to check. Besides the closet.
Now, when Wagner left, Marin remained hidden for hours. She waited in the dark with 2 bodies in the house.
See, now, that might be worse than the attack. The waiting. Not knowing if he's coming back. Not knowing if someone else even will come back. Just wind and blood. Now, when morning came, neighbors eventually did discover the crime, and the island would never feel the same again.
Now, but the horror didn't end with the bodies. It was the trial that followed was explosive, public, controversial, and there are some that still argue, was Louis Wagner fully guilty?
Or, hear me out, was he the most conventional suspect in a terrified island community? And that question, that right there is where this makes everything even more complicated.
Now, morning on Smuttynose Island did not bring peace. It brought discovery. The wind still howled, the ocean was still struck the rocks. But inside the small wooden house, Karen Kristen lay dead. Annette Christian lay dead. I might be saying their last names wrong, I apologize. And Marin Hontvet was alive. Well, barely.
Yeah, literally imagine being the only living witness on an island. There's no phones, no police line, no safe room, just trauma and the knowledge that everyone is going to look at you next.
Now, Marin told them it was Louis Wagner. She knew him. She recognized him. She had seen his face before she hid, and that identification would become the backbone of the entire case.
Which, that makes it very powerful, but also terrifying. Because she now has to testify. And in 1873, being a woman testifying in a murder trial, that is not comfortable territory because, they always point at the woman, especially in that time era. It's always the woman's fault.
Yeah, well, that, and if you think about it, women didn't have, I guess.
Nope.
Or weren't that smart.
Not at all.
But now, authorities wasted very little time. Wagner had been seen on the mainland, he had financial struggles, and he did show interest in Karen. He had a motive, and he also had an opportunity, and according to the testimonies, he did have blood on his clothes.
See, hold on, let's pause real fast. Because motive is the thing that matters the most here. Some accounts say he was angry over rejection, others suggest robbery. Some say it could be a mix of both since he really didn't have too much. But honestly, rowing 6 miles at night That is such a premeditated act, and that's not emotional impulse at all.
And Wagner was arrested within days, and the newspapers exploded. Headlines painted him as this monster, an axe murderer, a forward brute.
Ah, see? There it is. Because Wagner was Norwegian. And so were the victims. But when violence happens in immigrant communities in the 1800s, prejudice shows up very, very fast.
Yeah, and the press sensitized. I don't know, guys. I'm trying everything. They described the blood, the isolation, the helpless women, and it became national news.
Which means this wasn't just a case of justice, it became a spectacle all over.
Now, the trial began in 1873, and the courtroom was packed. People wanted to see the man that was accused of rowing through black water to kill women with an axe.
See, now, public trials in the 1800s were basically live entertainment, and that scares me because when a community is traumatized, they want someone to pay, and very fast at that.
Now, the prosecution's case relied heavily on Marion as the eyewitness testimony, the circumstantial evidence, the blood-stained clothes that was mentioned, and the alleged stolen money. And of course, Wagner denied everything. He claimed his innocence.
And see, that's where it gets complicated. Because some of the physical evidence was not handled the way we'd expect today. There's no forensic science as we know it, no way to trace DNA like we do now. There's no crime scene photography standards. This was all just basically testimony and an interpretation of the night's events.
And then when Marion took the stand, she had described hiding under the bed. She described the axe. She described being able to recognize Wagner. In the courtroom during all that was silent.
See, and that is a level of bravery I cannot even process. Reliving that in front of strangers, facing the man accused of killing your sister-in-law, and saying it was him.
Now, the defense attempted to cast doubt. Could she truly have seen him? Was it dark? Was she certain? But Marion did not waver at all.
See, and that detail is very important because trauma can blur memory, but it can also sharpen it, especially when your survival depends on remembering the face.
Okay, so the jury deliberated, well, not for too long, and he was guilty. Louis Wagner was sentenced to death by hanging.
And that's when justice shifts into something else, because a death sentence in 1873, that is a very public display, that's performative, and that's irreversible, obviously.
And when Wagner was executed in 1875, it's a public hanging. Hundreds attended, maybe some say thousands. He maintained his innocence to the end, though, and his final words repeatedly denied guilt.
And see, this is the moment that lingers, because what if he was guilty? Then justice was served. But just think about it though, like what if he wasn't? Public executions are terrifying no matter what, because the crowd doesn't come for closure, they come for certainty, and honestly, some people come because they enjoy watching that, which is kind of weird, but I get it.
I don't know what it was about, executions back then where everybody just had to see, I guess.
Yeah, and the fact that sometimes they would hold the head up as in victory, I'm like, really? Is that needed?
Now, when the chapter opened, it was over. Just like that. But the questions did not die with Wagner.
Okay, see now, we need to talk about the debate, because historians still argue, and some still do believe the evidence was strong enough. But on the controversial side, others believe Wagner was the most convenient suspect. He had motive, he was present, but was the case airtight? Not by modern standards.
And if you think about it, back then, they didn't necessarily have the equipment and stuff we use nowadays during investigations to help, process and eliminate, suspects. Now, there were whispers. Was someone else involved? Was robbery the only motive there? And did the community need closure so badly that any doubt was ignored?
See, and here's what scares me. Island communities are tight knit, but they're also pressure cookers. Fear spreads fast. And once a narrative forms, it is so hard to break out of it. It's like if you're in any small community, once word gets out, it's out. It's spreaded like a wildfire. Just think about your high school days.
High school, and think about being in like a tight-knit HOA community. Ooh.
Oh god, that shit's nuts. I'm so glad that I rent, so I don't have to deal with the HOA.
Now, Marin survived, she testified, and she watched justice unfold, and eventually, she did return to the island.
See, and that kind of shocks people, but trauma bonds people to places. So sometimes going back is reclaiming it, sometimes it's punishment, but also it sometimes can be a little bit of both.
Exactly, and she lived with what she heard, with what she saw, and with what she survived for decades. Survivor's guilt it is its own haunting. No ghosts are required. Now, but the story doesn't end with the hanging because people began to report things. On Smuttynose, in the wind, in the abandoned houses, there was footsteps, crying, and the sound of an axe striking wood.
See, and when a place absorbs that much fear, sometimes it doesn't let go.
Now, the Island of Shoals never fully emptied, but Smuttynose Island did change. The house where Karen and Annette were killed eventually did fall into ruin. The weather had stripped it, and the salt from the sea had ate it, and time hollowed it. But locals would say the island was never felt truly empty.
And here's the thing about isolated murder scenes. They don't get swallowed by city noise. There's no traffic to drown it out. There's no nightlife to override it. No constant energy to reset the air. On an island, the silence keeps everything.
Now, visitors have reported strange sensations when near the original house site. They would have cold spots or feel sudden amounts of dread. And they also had the sense of being watched from the shoreline. And also, some say they've heard what sounds like chopping wood when there's no one even there.
Okay, the phantom axe noise, that's a little rude. If I'm on vacation and I hear rhythmic chopping at dusk with no visible lumberjack, I am not investigating. I am packing my bags. I am leaving immediately.
Now, there are also reports of a woman's voice carried in the wind, very soft and distinct, almost crying or calling. Some attribute it to Karen and others to Annette, and some believe the island holds Marin's fear more than anything.
That part hits harder for me because Marin survived, but survival trauma doesn't evaporate. Imagine going back there, sleeping in a rebuilt structure, know exactly where the blood fell. That's not just a haunting, that's memory echoing through the wood grain.
Now, let's strip away the supernatural for a moment, because even without ghosts, this type of story lingers. Marin hid under a bed while her family was murdered. That's a sensory trauma, a sound base even, which is particularly brutal, honestly.
Yeah, because when you don't see something, your brain fills in the gaps. And what it invents is often worse sometimes than reality. Every footstep becomes a threat. Every creak becomes a return. And on an island, there's always going to be a consistent creaking noise going on.
And survivors of violent crimes do often report being hypervigilant. There are heightened startled responses, sleep disturbances, flashbacks that can be triggered by certain sounds. Now just imagine that layered with the ocean wind for the rest of your life.
See, the ocean never stops moving. So the sound never stops, which means the memory never fully resets. That might be the cruelest part of this entire story.
Now, maritime communities have long believed that water holds memory. Sailors speak of drowned voices in the fog and of islands that reject outsiders. Also of wind carrying unfinished business. Now, the Island of Shoals have multiple ghost stories beyond this one. Shipwreck spirits, phantom lights, and figures standing at the edge of rock cliffs.
Of course they do. You combine isolation, tragedy, and endless horizon. You get folklore. But what fascinates me is how quickly this murder becomes legend. It wasn't just a crime, it became part of the island's identity.
And artists and writers visited the Isles later in the 1800s. The murder was retold, it was dramatized, and even romanticized, and can be distorted at times. Louis Wagner became either a monster or a martyr depending on who was speaking about it.
And see, that's the thing about historical true crime. Once it leaves the courtroom, it belongs to everyone, which means the story shifts, but the victims, they stay the same. Karen, Anity, Maureen, real woman, not folklore props.
Now, I want you guys to close your eyes. It's March 5th. The wind is sharp, enough to sting. You're inside a small wooden house. The candlelights flicker, and then you hear a knock.
You recognize the voice outside, it's familiar, safe. You open the door, wind bursts in with him.
Time passes, conversations drift. Then there's movement. Wood shifting, weight changing in the room.
The first scream doesn't last long. It's cut off. You don't understand what's happening yet until you hear the impact. Silence, and then another one.
You run, you hide. Under the bed, with your cheeks against cold floorboards, breathing through your sleeve, with footsteps above you.
Dust in your throat, you can see the hem of his coat. You don't blink, you don't move, because the ocean outside is louder than your heartbeat, and you pray that's enough. Footsteps move away, door opens, closes, and then wind fills the space again.
Now, you stay hidden for hours, because survival sometimes means waiting longer than your fear.
Okay, let's talk about it. Do you think Wagner did it?
Well, the evidence pointed heavily towards him. Marin's testimony was pretty unwavering, and with circumstantial details aligned, but by modern standards, there would obviously be reasonable doubt.
Yeah, I think this is one of those cases where truth and certainty aren't identical. Was he capable? Definitely. Was he likely? Very possibly. Was the trial flawless? Absolutely not. And that tension is why this case still breathes.
The Smuttynose Island murderers endured because they combined everything that unsettles us. Isolation, betrayal, the night travel over black water, a violence inside a very safe space, and survival just by inches.
And what lingers isn't just the axe, it's the knock, the choice to open the door, the fact that danger didn't break in, it was invited, and that's the real core.
Ooh, okay.
I don't like that. But y'all know what time it is. We're the two idiots among the dead.
Where history is darker than fiction.
And if someone rows toward you at midnight,
Lock the door.
and you better not answer the damn knock at the door.